kom dit wyd gesmeer. Die lied van 'n volk se ontwaking, wat harte laat sidder en beef.
Ek smoeg vir die vrese waarmee ons moet lewe, vir guns en vir moord en vir rape. Ek smoeg vir die bad news, vir Zuma en sy views, van ons op TV moet kyk. Ek wil nie meer hoor hoe ons tieners begrawe, oor niemand hul steur aan die wet. Ek wil nie meer lees van affirmative action of beklei om te hou wat ek het. Gee vir my 'n nuwe geit, 'n koers toe plesie en 'n tellery, wat lief kiesem en stry, oor die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly. Ek siek vir Malema, sy leuns en sy sê maar, ons hou maar ons mond en betaal. Ons kruip weg in kampe, word blind vir die rampe, en bid dat die Heer ons omhaal. Daar's Winnie Mandela, wat mense verbrand het, maar nou wil sy huil in haar hand. Die staatskas is leeg en die ANC jeug saai verwoesting en pyn deur ons land. Gee vir my 'n nuwe geit, 'n koers toe plesie en 'n tellery, wat lief kiesem en stry, oor die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly. Het betaal vir die grond waar sy kinders se kinders kan bly. Maar sy huis en sy lande is nou in die hande van die vyand teen wie hy moes stry. Ons kinders verstaan nie waar kom al vandaan nie, hul erfenis is uitgewis. Geen volkslied of vlag nie en geen erewag nie vir die helde wat daar nie meer is. Gee vir my 'n nuwe geit, 'n koers toe plesie en 'n tellery, wat lief kiesem en stry, oor die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly. Gee vir my 'n nuwe geit, 'n koers toe plesie en 'n tellery, wat lief kiesem en stry, oor die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly. En ons reg om hier te kan bly.
You're listening to Radio Free South Africa with Karin Smith on ResolutionRadio.com. Call in to listen now at 607-203-5423. That's 607-203-5423.
Welcome to Radio Free South Africa. This is your host, Karin Smith. Following last week's interview with Gerard Koch, who gave the Boer Nation's response to the secession of the Khoi King and the sovereign state of Good Hope, tonight, we have Gordon Holder. He is going to speak on behalf of the Eurokaners, which are all white South Africans that do not speak Afrikaans. This includes English, Greek, Portuguese. Every white person that's home language is not Afrikaans. Now, as you know, and as we have stated so often, the Khoi King seceded on behalf of the Khoi, but he included in that secession 3 other nations. the Boer Nation, the Eurokaners, and the Colored Nation. We have gone into who the Coloreds are many times on this program, so I'm not going to go there again. And Gordon Holder is going to speak to us tonight on behalf of the Eurokaners. Good evening, Gordon.
Good evening, Karin.
Gordon,
good to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's an absolute pleasure. This is the biggest, the most enormous thing that we have ever been involved in at Radio Free South Africa. And as I said to you before, in my opinion, this is the only chance the minority groups in South Africa have to create what is known in America as a safe space for themselves. And a safe space does not include coloring books and crayons and pet dogs and all of the things that the snowflakes in America consider to be safe spaces. It includes a space where you can work, you can worship God, you can farm, and you do not have to fear murder every second of every day. Am I correct, Gordon?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you know, the one of the most important things there is the right to self-determination, which has been taken away from every individual group in South Africa. I mean, South Africa was a melting pot of the most incredibly diverse cultures, I think, than anywhere in the world. I mean, to give you an idea, Durban in KwaZulu-Natal has the largest population of Indians outside of India than anywhere else in the world. You know, we've got the diversity is there, but people aren't appreciating it. People don't have the right anymore to worship the God they want to worship, to do what they want to do, get educated the way they want to be educated. And like you said, everybody is living in constant fear as to whether they're actually going to make it home at night or not.
And Gordon, okay, so how did you get involved in this? Because it's such a, the world doesn't know about it. South Africans don't know about it. How did you get involved?
It's actually quite an interesting way, the way everything fell into place, so to speak. I was approached by a security company because I do security assessments on electronic surveillance systems, alarm systems, access control, all that sort of stuff. And then one of the subsidiary companies that I started also deals with uniforms and non-combative equipment. So it's like safety equipment, boots, sleeping bags, all that sort of stuff. And these guys approached me and said to me they were looking at a type of uniform to redo the South African Colored Corps' uniforms because they weren't satisfied with what government had basically given them. You know, they wanted their own unique identity and everything else. And then we started chatting, you know, about everything and about the Khoi history. And I was schooled in things that I had no idea even happened in this country. Having lived here for 47 years, you know, being in our overly protected education system, growing up in the throes of the apartheid government or National Party government, you know, a lot of what was supposed to be in our history was left out. And when I started looking more and more into what had actually happened, where people came from, what the origins of everything were, and what the ideal was behind the actual secession, which were two totally separate issues. You know, I said to them, look, I would love to be involved in this. I love the culture. I love the history behind it. You know, so I would like to see where I could add value. And then I had a meeting that was supposed to be half an hour long with Cuba. And, yeah, the first meeting, they arrived at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and left at 12 o'clock that night. And then the second meeting 2 days later, they arrived at 6 and also left at 11:45 that night.
Wow.
And we just, we actually discovered that we, although technically two different race groups, two different entities, that we actually have so much in common with the passion and the love that we have for this country. And just wanting to have this, I wouldn't say utopian type of paradise, but getting as close to it as we possibly can, where people actually have the right to be able to, like I said, worship their God, work where they want to work, where there are job opportunities, where things can happen and they can live their life the way they want to live it. And, this is what Cuba wants for everybody that's involved in the sovereign state of Good Hope.
When we first spoke to King Kubaha, I was impressed, very impressed with the humility, the love, and the genuineness that shines out of that king. He is not an aristocrat. He doesn't have any pretensions or airs or graces. He's a down-to-earth man of his people. And the fact that he was willing to forgive all the evil things that have been done to his people throughout the centuries was amazing to me.
Absolutely. One of the things that I found absolutely astounding about him is, like you said, his humility, his humbleness, his openness. When you converse with him, he will. I mean, I've had, I don't know how many meetings with him. I see them if not every day, every second day. And it's been like that for the last month and a half, 2 months almost. And I've not seen him lose his temper. I've not seen him or heard him say a disrespectful thing about anybody, no matter how far right or how far left wing they are. He's just, when I spoke to an old associate of mine that I said needs to meet Cuba because he's backing the wrong horse in this race, so to speak.
Yes.
And I you know what, if you sit down and talk to this man for half an hour, it's like a light comes on. You just realize that this is what you need to do. This is what, he doesn't have that dictatorial magnetism that like Adolf Hitler and Eugene Sablanche and the rest of the people had. His magnetism is his humility. That he is so humble in everything that he does. He takes time to talk to people. It doesn't matter where he goes or what he does. If somebody greets him, he'll stop and greet them and ask them, how's your family, how are the kids, how this? And, with somebody that's in the position that he's in, to be so grounded, I find it absolutely phenomenal.
For me, he's a remarkable man, and that is what sold me. I had reservations when I was first asked to represent the Cape of Good Hope the sovereign state of Good Hope in the media. I had reservations, and I asked a lot of questions, and finally I got to speak to the king myself. And that was the end of any reservations I had, the end of any problems I might have had with it. And I am firmly behind this secession because there is no other way. You cannot sit and pray. Yes, you must pray, but you've got to do it as well. So all the prayers in the world are not going to make this happen. And all the believing in Sino van Rensburg are not going to make it happen. We need boots on the ground and hands working to make this work.
Absolutely agree with you. Karin, one of the most important things as well is I always jokingly, because Karat and I get along like a house on fire. We give each other gas about being the Royneck and the Dutchman and everything else. And we always, and we have constructive conversations about everything. And, I said to him, yes, it's fine, the whole Sina von Rensburg thing. But I said to him, in his vision, when he said that there would be a nation that would rise up from the south to rule the country, I said to him, did he specify who it would be? And Gerard said, he said it would be a minority. So I said, well, there you go. And there's a lot of things in prophecies and everything else that get misinterpreted along the way. And there's also, like with the Bible and with everything else, where certain people make interpretations to suit their own needs and their own end. And if you look at everything that has happened in South Africa, that is the driving force behind this, and the people actually realizing that, what, it boils down to the old fascism adage of, united we stand, divided we fall. And if the four minority groups stand behind this and back this 100% of the way, and I mean every single person in those minority groups, the secession will do nothing but succeed. And this will be the most amazing place on the planet to live in. Because everybody will have the right to work. You won't be told you can't get a job because you're white. You can't get a job because you don't have what I call a 3-year dumbass degree.
Yes.
If you want to work, you can work. You have that right to be able to provide for your family, to be able to, like I said in a TV interview, and the most important thing is that you have the right to self-determination. So if you want to go and buy a 40 or 50,000 hectare piece of land, and you've got a group of your people, whatever they are, that want to go and live there and build your own church and do your own thing, you're entitled to do it. There's nobody that's going to say you can't do it, as long as it doesn't interfere or cause a problem for the sovereign state of Good Hope. You have that freedom to do what you want to do. And I think that's what you need to realize as well, is that this is an all-inclusive thing. It's not, we're going to say, you can't come here, you don't, if you're going to benefit and you're going to add value to the sovereign states of Good Hope, you're more than welcome to be here.
That was the other thing that struck me, is that like our President Trump is trying to do to enforce immigration on a merit-based system, rather than on, well, you want to come here, so come, right? Get your Nikes on and run across the border, and you're welcome, and you can live on welfare, and America will pay for you. It's not like that, and Good Hope is not going to be like that either. It is going to be add value or don't.
The most amazing thing about South Africa, being a South African, wanting to go and work overseas, just purely for an experience point of view and all the rest of it, and seeing what some of my family members have gone through to be able, to go over and to immigrate and all the rest of it. If you want to go to Zimbabwe or Zambia or wherever, you've got to have a degree. You've got to open a business. You've got to employ a certain amount of their local nationals to be able to work in that business. But yet you walk into a steakhouse in South Africa and your waiters are Zimbabweans. Now, to me, where is that an essential service for an immigrant to be offering that? There's no reason why our kids can't be working as waiters and waitresses. And the problem there also falls back to the businesses, because the businesses know that they can pay that guy next to nothing to work there, and he'll work because he can't find work in Zimbabwe or in the Congo or in Mozambique or wherever else they're from. So they pay them way below the minimum wage. Treat these guys like absolute garbage and get away with it, because if the guy says anything, they just report him to immigration, and then immigration wakes up and says, okay, no, well, you don't belong here, or the guy just packs his bags and leaves. So there's no fair immigration policy in South Africa at the moment at all. People can flood in here. I mean, the best is the guys from, I think it's Uganda and I can't remember where there's another country up in Africa that persecutes homosexuals. So what happens is these guys get a visa on a visitor's visa. They arrive in South Africa, and then they say, no, they come in refugee status because they're homosexuals. And with South Africa's constitution and everything else, we can't send them home because we know they're going to be persecuted. Now, how do you prove somebody's not a homosexual?
Yeah.
And this is the problem we've got with a lot of the people that are illegally coming into South Africa, is that everybody knows in South Africa, if you've got enough money, you can buy anything from a doctorate to literally a professorship and everything in between, because that's how corrupt the system's become. And, we need to obviously have a very careful look at our immigration, policies when it comes to the sovereign state of Good Hope. But just coming back to President Trump, his whole take on the immigration visa, this visa lottery system that you've got. The prime failure, to me, the prime example of an absolute failure of a system like that is what happened in Manhattan with the cyclist.
Yes.
The guy that was driving the pickup truck got in here on I don't know if it was a diversity visa or the green card lottery or whatever it is.
Those are the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, you can't, to me, you can't allow people into your country because they want a prize. To me, that's just looking for trouble.
Well,
in all honesty.
Exactly, Gordon. And then he had 23 family members come in on the chain immigration system. So, that's 24 people from one visa lottery win. It's shocking. It is shocking. And one has to, I think that the people in control in Good Hope have learned from all these other mistakes that they've seen happening and will not allow that to happen in their country.
Oh, absolutely. Look, the thing is, there's no way we can have a citizen lottery of any description. The thing is, like we've stated from the beginning, the whole reason for this secession is we are going to make the country work. The country is going to be exceptionally diverse, but everybody that is in the sovereign state of Good Hope, in one way, form, shape, or size, is going to be contributing to the wellness of the nation and the people that are in it. And if you don't feel like you want to do that, one of the greatest freedoms that are going to be bestowed on you is the freedom to leave.
Yeah.
When everyone, so it's a case of, yes, it's going to be diverse. Yes, you're going to have a lot more freedom than what you did before, but you will toe the line. And that's what it boils down to. And if, like I said, if the guys aren't willing to do that and they're going to come in here with all sorts of other funny ideas, you will be denied access at the border. Your immigration folder, everything will be waiting. If you want to immigrate, and I'm not talking about South Africans that of the four nations that want to come down here. I'm talking about people from foreign countries that want to come. Well, South Africa will be a foreign country, hopefully one day soon.
Yes.
But, your immigration folder will be waiting for you at immigration. Everybody will be screened at the port of entry, and you will be asked, what are you going to be doing? How are you going to be contributing to the economy? And, it's not a case of you're going to come down because you think you're famous and you need to be here and, you want to open up a string of internet cafes so that you can smuggle, that's how you're going to launder drug money. It's not, you go home. You don't belong here.
Well, that is great to hear. Now, there have been rumors, and I'm asking you about this. If you don't know the answer or don't want to give the answer, that's also fine. But we interviewed Jack Miller from the DA, and what they wanted to do was have a canton system like they have in Switzerland. So what I'm asking is, does each nation have their own portion of Good Hope, or do we all live together?
No. Everybody lives together. The way it's going to be handled is that if, say for example, you have your Council for Agriculture, okay, on every council, whether it be safety and security, energy, minerals, whatever, you're going to have 4 people heading up that council. So you're going to have one Khoi, one Colored, one Afrikaner Boervolk representative, and one Eurokaner representative. So you're going to have 4 heads of a department. Now, before anything gets escalated to the Executive Council, which also complies the same rule, there's one Khoisan, one Colored, one Afrikaner Boervolk, and one Eurokaner that then ratify it and then either pass it on up to the King and the King's Council for approval, or it gets sent back to rework on the problems and all the rest of it within the proposal. The system of my least favorite word in the world is governance like that, is that you immediately almost completely eradicate corruption, because all 4 parties need to agree to whatever the plan or the budget or whatever the thing is that they're going to be pushing forward. And if they can't agree on that principle, you know, 4 people can't keep a secret.
Yes.
So if all 4 of them are going to try and take a backhand, all 4 of them will be caught. You know, so that is the main, you know, the key thing with that. Firstly, to eradicate the corruption, but secondly, to ensure that every nation within the sovereign states of Good Hope is equally representative in all parts of the councils, or well, for lack of a better word, government, so to speak.
You know
that
what?
Everybody has equal representation everywhere.
You know what, Gordon? While we're inventing words like Eurokaner, which are perfect to me, we have to invent a new word for government. You know, Good Hope has to have its own system, because it's a unique system that you have, that you're starting there. So we're going to have a new word for it.
Well, we coined a phrase the other day where we call it cooperative governance for government, because that's exactly what it is. It's all 4 nations need to cooperate for the governance of the country. You know, and that's why we've cottoned onto that phrase of cooperative governance within the sovereign states of Good Hope, because it's not going to be a case of where anybody's going to be left out again. You know, everybody needs to be equally represented in every single government department, irrespective of whether it's agriculture, you know, the Council for Fisheries, the Council for Police and State Security, or the military, or whatever councils they're going to be. There are going to be 4 representatives, one from each of the nations on that council, heading up that council.
So then how does an election work then? The colored vote for colored people, and the white, the Boer nation vote for a Boer person, and the Eurokaners vote. Each nation has their own vote. Is that how it's going to work?
Within those relevant departments, the person most qualified for that position will be put in that position. The whole thing with political parties and elections and things like that won't need to exist, because of the fact that you have the equal representation. You won't need to have a party like the DA that's that puts on the it's almost like your old 1950s and 60s blackface plays, where you have these one or two black faces representing a party, but everybody knows it's for the white. Where you have parties like the Vryheids Front Plus that represent the Afrikaner. They won't be necessary because you will have an all-inclusive cooperative governance system in place. So within, it's not going to be a case of, because this guy bought the most beers at the pub.
Yes.
For the most amount of friends, he gets the job. It's going to be a case of the person that is most qualified and most suited for the position will be put into that position. And those positions will be agreed to by the various councils and the executive council.
So
with the king obviously overseeing it.
So it'll be like applying for a job. You apply for the position, and the most qualified person gets it. How it should be, but isn't in South Africa, because the least qualified gets it in South Africa. But in Good Hope, the most qualified applicant will get the job.
Irrespective, if we, for example, if we advertise and say, right, we are looking for a Khoi member of council for the Department of Agriculture, and you get 5,000 members of the Khoi Nation apply for the job, and you've got two people that are equally qualified for it. Obviously there'll be a vetting process and all the rest of it included in it.
Yes.
But, that person will be then, one of them will be put into a deputy position or a relief position or something like that. So you will always have, an ongoing replacement of councillors, so to speak.
Yes.
But to waste money on elections is a totally frivolous exercise. Because you get people in the masses that are going to vote for somebody that they like, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right person for the job. Case in point is what's happening in South Africa right now.
Yeah.
It is basically, it boils down to merit and qualification for the position. I mean, I'm not the position I'm in right now doesn't necessarily mean as the position I'm going to be in 3 months' time. Because if somebody else out there that feels they are more qualified for the position I currently hold and can do a better job than what I can do, by all means apply for it, and I will step down. Because if I know you can do a better job than what I can, why would I stay in that position?
So will there be...
And this is the thought that we've got in amongst all of the guys that have been mandated by the king in the relevant positions right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that the chap who's in charge of cultural development, say for example, is going to be the guy that's in cultural development for the next 40 years. If somebody comes along that's more qualified and says, listen, I think I can do a better job, his qualifications and merits and everything else get assessed, and if it's felt that he can do a better job, he does a better job.
Okay, so what I understand from what you're telling me is that this shadow government that's in place right now is simply to prove to the necessary people, another country, and the United Nations that Good Hope is in a position to govern. But once it becomes a reality, then applications will come in for the various positions, and the most qualified earns it. Am I correct in thinking that?
Absolutely. I mean, the things that I, at 47, having been in business development for quite a while and learning on a daily basis, so if there's somebody that is 60 years old and is up for the challenge, says to me, listen, you don't know what you're talking about. I think I can do a better job. I'll say to him, right, come and see us. And by all means, if you can do a better job, off you go.
Well,
because at the end of the day, people's attitudes are about what it boils down to. It's not who is right, it's what is right. and what is right and what is good for the sovereign state of Good Hope and the people that are in it. It's not that, people have to get rid of this selfish, sentimental way that is being indoctrinated into their heads from the day they're born. That if you can do the job, you're the only one that can do the job. Nobody can be better than you. You know what? There is always somebody better than you. There's always somebody faster. There's always somebody smarter, but that doesn't prevent you from learning from them.
Yes.
And
yes.
this is also the mentorship. Coming back to what I said on the TV interview about the apprenticeship training programs being all but obliterated in South Africa because it's a white. Now all of a sudden that they see that, hold on, we don't have any more qualified tradesmen, they've started putting up these trade schools. But try as a white kid to get into a trade school in South Africa. Impossible. Try as a colored kid, impossible. As a Khoi, impossible. As an Afrikaner, you got more hope as a man falling pregnant than getting in. So all of those systems need to change. We need to get people working, we need to get people thinking, and we need to get people's responsibility back. And, if people are working, they're living in a decent house, they've got electricity, they've got water, they can open their fridge and they know they've got food, your crime rate is not going to exist. Because why is a man going to go and steal when he already has?
Gordon, for me, what a good example of this is Orania. They don't even have a police force because they're very careful about who gets accepted into Orania. They have to contribute to the good of everybody. They have to work. They have to maintain themselves and their families. With some help, if they need a hand up in the process of getting settled, that's there for them. But if they do not produce within a set amount of time, they have to leave. And it has worked in the case of Orania.
Okay, I would like to use a better example than that is Swaziland. Because in Swaziland, every Swazi born is entitled to land. This is how it works. You decide you want your piece of land, you get given a piece of land. I can't remember the exact size, but it's not a very big piece of land, obviously, because Swaziland is like 120 kilometers across.
Yeah.
But you get given a patch of land, but you get given 1 year to have either built a homestead on it or start growing crops or doing something to become self-sustained. If you don't do anything on it, it gets taken away from you because then you're just sitting on the land and you're ruining somebody else's opportunity to become self-sufficient. Now, there are vast tracts of land that are available for guys to do everything from growing crops to sheep farming to everything else you could imagine can be done in the sovereign states of Good Hope. So a lot of the guys that are going to be coming down, obviously, I just want to touch a little bit on the sentiment that Karin actually mentioned in the TV interview of a lot of the farmers that are on these 6th and 7th generation farms that are up in the northern part of Polokwane, as it's now known, the far northern part of South Africa, and all the rest of it are gonna turn around and say, yeah, but now I've got to leave everything behind and come down and start afresh. At the end of the day, how much of a price tag do you put on the life of your children, the safety of your children, and happiness of your kids, and the happiness of your family? If you're going to live on a farm where you've got to have guard dogs inside the house, and literally, I will send you a video clip of it, a farmer in the Free State that's got lions walking around the outside of his house at night.
I've seen that. I've seen that one.
Because of the fear of the farm attacks and the genocide that's happening in South Africa at the moment. It's a very worrying thing that these guys are so hell-bent and so stuck on this thing that, I don't want to give up my farm. At the end of the day, they need to realize that if they don't, they are going, in all likelihood, to be killed.
Apologize, guys. We seem to be having some technical issues. If you could just hang in for a moment, we'll be right.
From 1948 to 1994, there were less than 50,000. Now, you do the math.
Well,
the numbers are quite.
I read a report the other day, Gordon, that say that those are the numbers put out by the South African police. But if you look at Interpol and if you look at the health organizations in South Africa, their numbers are double or more the murders that do. So that 385,000 is more than double to get to the correct figure.
Yeah.
And that is horrific.
Since the Black, since the Black Monday March, there have been, I think, 14 reported farm attacks since Monday. Now, what people don't realize, and I don't know if your listeners actually know about what happens in one of these farm attacks, and I'm not going to describe it on your radio station, but what I would recommend you do is go onto YouTube and just type in South African farm murders and see how many videos there are, documentaries that have been made. I came across one again today that I saw many years ago, and I couldn't remember the guy's name, is a Dr. Stanton from Genocide. Now, according to South Africa is on a level 6 of possible level 8 when it comes to genocide. And the best definition I heard as well was that a genocide doesn't necessarily happen in 3 or 4 days or a couple of weeks like what happened in Rwanda and Burundi. A genocide is determined by the race, the religion, and the ethnicity of the people that are involved in the massacre. Now, if you look at it per capita, the amount of white people murdered, and it's not just farmers, it's not just Buddha, it's English-speaking whites. The Eurokaners are getting massacred. The Afrikaner Boervolk are getting massacred on their farms. Your Eurokaner farmers are dwindling to almost nothing. We've got tour guides that are getting attacked and murdered. There was one guy that was very much into the whole Zulu culture, an English guy, I can't remember what his name is now, but was murdered on his farm. Had a Zulu cultural village on his property and did tourism and did all sorts of things and was murdered. There was a South African guy that exposed the whole ivory exporting in Kenya, was assassinated by what we think is a mafia link to the Far East. But, all of these murders that are happening are, when foreign reporters have analyzed it, they are the ones that have turned around and said, with the amount of crime that is happening against the whites in South Africa and the lack of arrests that are happening shows that there has to be somewhere down the line some sort of government, either cooperation or total complacency to these crimes happening. And that, to me, is a frightening thought.
Well, Gordon, how can they not be involved in it? If they are singing Kill the Boer, the EFF and the Blackland First had a protest against Black Monday. And Julius Malema and his followers all sang once again, Kill the Boer. That was this week.
Yeah.
And so the Black Monday protesters are being arrested. The flying of the old South African flag that's now in Parliament in South Africa to make it a criminal offense to fly that flag. But singing those songs, Bring Me My Machine Gun, and the other one, Kill the Boer, is perfectly okay because those are struggle songs, and the flag is racist.
Yeah.
So you tell me that the government is not involved if they're allowed to sing those songs and defend it.
You know, the thing is, this is what everybody out there needs to realize. I mean, if you want to see the most racist flag, in my opinion, since the swastika, is the new South African flag.
The G-string flag.
Because if you analyze the G-string flag, yeah. Now, if you look at the South African flag, the Boere Volk Afrikaner has always been very proud of what we call the Vierkleur, the four-color flag. Now, the four-color flag was red on top, white in the middle, blue at the bottom, with a green stripe on the side. Now, if you look at the new South African flag, doesn't it look like there's a gold-tipped assegai head flying through the middle of that flag?
Yes, it does. And that reminds me of Mkhonto Sizwe.
And
because they're called the spear of the nation.
Yeah, that is the level of psychological warfare that this government is imposing on the people in this country. That they are showing you in your own flag that you are going to be obliterated. Now, if that isn't a wake-up call to these guys, then I don't know if anything ever will be. I mean, I cannot, to be honest with you, I cannot even stand looking at that flag anymore. Once that was pointed out to me and I had a look at it, and I actually thought, maybe, if you tilted at this angle or tilted at that angle, maybe, but it is square, straight in your face.
Yep. Well, I have to tell you that outside my house in Texas, we fly the old South African flag together with the Texans flag every day outside my house, because I will never acknowledge that G-string flag as my point of pride. And on that note, we're coming up to a station break. We will be back.
All you need to do with the old South African flag is take the Union Jack off and put the St. James's cross on.
No, I agree with you absolutely, but for now, that's what we have, and that's what we lived under for many years, and that is what I fly outside my home. We're coming up to a station break.
I'm sure in America you can get a sovereign states of good hope flag made and hang it up. I'll send you the JPEG of the flag.
I have the pictures, and I proudly display them. We're due a station break. We will be back in a few minutes. You're listening to Radio Free South Africa with your host, Karin Smith, and our guest tonight is Gordon Holder from South Africa, speaking about the privileges and the beauty of the secession of the sovereign state of Good Hope. Welcome back, Gordon.
Thanks, Karin.
Gordon, what I'd like to speak to you about now is the terrible situation in South Africa for all minority groups and how that led to the necessity of the secession of the sovereign state of Good Hope. And what is of great importance to everybody, I don't care who you are, black, white, yellow, green, even if you come from Mars, the education of your children is of huge importance to you. I mean, people spend their life saving to send their children to college or university so that their children get a better education than they got. But the situation in the present South Africa is so bad that you're not getting an education at all.
No, you're not. One of the things that stand out, it's actually a running joke at the moment with the university students, is that as soon as they've got to write exams, they start boycotting about not paying fees, and this fees must fall thing, and all the rest of it, because none of them have studied, none of them have done any of their work. So they know they're going to write exams and fail, so they strike, and they burn, and they break, and destroy. Now, that also comes back to parenting, where parents feel that their hands are completely tied because you may not discipline your child, no matter whether it's a smack on the bum. I mean, look, by no means do I agree that you take a whip and tie a child to a post and give them 40 lashes for stealing an apple. But all of us, I always say that the biggest problem we have as parents is that we try so hard not to be like our own parents that we end up screwing our own children. And if you take a step back and look at it, the way you were raised, you didn't really turn out that bad. So maybe your parents were actually onto something. And a lot of people nowadays, like I've said, I don't know how many times, that society as a whole has become too touchy-feely. Everybody is too scared of offending somebody by saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or wearing the wrong shirt it's got to the point now where it's absolutely ludicrous. Kids are so ill-disciplined. There are videos on a daily basis of children fighting in schools where children are throwing brooms and beating teachers, pushing teachers out of the way because they want access into specific schoolrooms. And I'm not talking university. These are high school students that are running.
Did you see the report this week of that teacher was attacked with a knife by an ex-student of hers? She was cut so badly, she's ended up in hospital because I don't know exactly why, but the ex-student, not even a student from the school, came to her house and in front of her child stabbed her and cut her. A white teacher. It's horrific.
Yeah. You see, the thing is with that is because it's a black on white violent act, those don't get into mainstream media in South Africa. You'll hear about it on a renegade website that'll run the story and maybe for 2 or 3 hours until the powers that be find it and shut it down. There is so much of this crap going on in South Africa, and so much of it that we are totally oblivious to, because the censoring of media in this country is worse than what it was during the National Party reign. Back in the days of apartheid, where everything was censored. We couldn't even watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show because Tim Curry was running around in suspenders.
I remember
that was supposed to be too disgusting for the South African audience. But everything else is, you can freely get anything now on the internet. But, there's no freedom of speech in this country. Freedom of speech in South Africa does not exist because they will find a reason to shut you down. They will find a reason why you can't broadcast or you can't say what you want to say or do what you want to do. And the second you're a white person doing it, you're a racist.
Yes,
like what happened in America with the people that voted against Obama. You're a racist. Not the fact that he managed to triple your deficit in 4 years, what 250 years worth of presidents couldn't even do. He managed to do in 4 years. Everybody thought he was not a good president, but if you voted against him, you were a racist. This whole race card thing has become so ridiculous. It's trickled down into our schools where there are black kids running around bullying and beating the crap out of white kids. The white kids can't defend themselves because as soon as the white kid stands up and says enough and blitzums or beats the bully, sorry, I'll use the South African vernacular there, but beats a black bully, he's automatically deemed a racist. And this is what's happening in the schools. So the kids, besides the fact that our education system has gone to absolute crap, a case in point is where, if a South African years ago wanted to immigrate to whatever country, and you had a South African high school diploma and you had a university degree, there was no problem with you immigrating. You were immediately taken up. And, the same thing came down to tradesmen. If you did a 3-year apprenticeship in South Africa, you were regarded as one of the highest qualified tradesmen in the world. And you were lapped up at any available opportunity. Now, with a university degree, if a kid wants to immigrate to whichever country, they first have to then rewrite that country's high school diploma, and then redo the bulk of their degree overseas. Because the education system here is so far gone, so to speak. I mean, they now be a very prestigious medical school in South Africa has got a system in place that they will never admit to, but we know it's happened because it's happened to a friend of ours' daughter who applied, who happens to be white and had 87% average for the end of high school, was told that her marks weren't high enough. And they said, okay, fair enough, but then how does the system work? And apparently one of the university staff members turned around and said to her, well, if you're black and you have 45% or above, you can come. And then if there's any spaces left over, if you are Chinese, because in South Africa, Chinese are considered black, the same rule applies. 45% or higher, you can come. Then if there's any spaces left over, I think it's the colored. Well, they see the colored and Khoi as one nation. The coloreds and the Khoi and the Indians then get a choice, but they have to have 65% and higher to get in. And then if there's any spaces left over, the white kids have to have 90% and above to be able to get in. If that isn't a blatant racistic system of merit, then I do not know what is. South Africa, like I said in the TV interview, has had an unbelievable brain drain. I mean, figures have shown that there are over 2 million white South Africans living in London alone, okay, where they've actually got nightclubs in London that they don't let you in unless you speak Afrikaans. The repatriation thing has become so ridiculous. But, as far as the education in that is concerned, it's virtually non-existent. I mean, I had 2 guys that were working for me that were in their early or late teens, early 20s, that worked on a part-time construction site. And then if I need help around the house or whatever, because the older brother is a security guard on one of the complexes, I get them in to come and help us with, whatever woodwork things and whatever we need to do. And I was talking to the one brother has got standard 8, does not speak a word of English, cannot communicate whatsoever. His older brother, who had a standard 9, neither one of them finished high school because the father died and they couldn't afford to carry on sending the kids to school. So the kids had to drop out of school. But this is now, and the other one, the other brother at least, you battle to communicate with him because he doesn't have any concept of English or Afrikaans. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say to me, yes, I should learn an African language because I'm in Africa and all the rest of it. He wants to work for me. He needs to be able to communicate with me. If I was working for him, I would say, fair enough, I will learn his language because I want to work for him. But he wants to work for me, so he needs to be able to communicate with me. This is what is happening in all of the schools. I mean, even our police force, when they did a random inspection on the police force a while ago, I remember reading something on the internet, whether it was fake news or not, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me, that they found that something like 35% of the policemen working in the charge offices could not read or write, even in their own languages. But these are policemen.
I
that
read
are
that.
supposed to take your statement.
I read that as well.
So obviously the sovereign states of Good Hope is going to have a totally different approach on education, where history is going to be all-inclusive. If a child decides to study history, he's going to know everybody's history. He's not just going to know the white man's history or the Buddha Africana or the Eurocana or the color of the Khoi history. He's going to know everybody's history. He's going to know what happened in the 14th century or 15th century when the Khoi fought the Portuguese. Did you know that?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I found out about that 2 weeks ago.
So did I,
Because
funnily enough. Gordon, and I thought that when we went to school, we had a really excellent education because we were taught history and geography of the rest of the world as well as South Africa. But we didn't know about our own stuff. We didn't know about the Khoi. We didn't know. I have apologized a million times for being so ignorant about the Khoi because we were not taught that.
We were, as far as our education was concerned and our history was concerned, the Khoi were black, the blacks were bad. You don't need to know anything about them. You need to know that Dingon murdered Pitratif's son and made him watch, and then they beat his son to death, and then they murdered Pitratif after that, and a lot of other Boers, and we were taught about the Battle of Blood River and the Day of the Vow, where Pitratif made a vow to God that if they defeat the Zulus at the Battle of Blood River, that will always be a religious holiday. It was until 1994. Then it became Dingon's Day, which was another total slap in the face of the Buddha Africana. And then it was changed to the Day of Reconciliation. Now, when you turn your back on God that badly, you cannot expect anything to work. I am not a fundamental religious person, but like I said, in my life, there were two things I feared: my mom and God. And unfortunately, my mom is not anymore. She passed away quite a while ago. But I have an undeniable respect and fear of God. I mean, it's like you see these things with these kids in prison, tearing pages out of the Bible to roll joints with, as if it's a telephone directory. I mean, we would never, as kids, have done that because we had religious instruction in school. And I'm not saying that now all of a sudden you have to have, Buddhism and this and that and the next thing. You look at what your constitution is based on. Your constitution is based on Christianity. So your school system will be Christian-based. Whether you at home are a practicing Catholic, Protestant, whatever it may be, you have the right to practice your religion at home. But part of your educational system will be religious instruction, where you will get to know about the Bible and God and things like that. As we had when we were kids, you're going to have proper subjects. They've changed the name of such things in the South African education system. I don't even know what they call the things anymore. But you've got things like social studies and how do you feed your Tamagotchi and all sorts of other crap that serves no purpose. To me, a child needs to be educated. Part of the education system that will be implemented with the people that are in charge of education is going to be life skills, but proper life skills. How to fill in a tax return, how to use a credit card, how to balance your budget every month, why you pay taxes, what the benefits of healthcare are, and everything else. So that when you leave school, you know what to expect in the big wide world. You're not just going to be dropped in a situation where, oh God, I have to go home and live in my mom's basement. You're going to actually be taught the coping skills when you're in school. There's a lot of other changes that are going to be happening around education and everything else. We're not going back to the old, how do I put this? Your nationalist two-party apartheid system of education. Each ethnic group has their own type of education. Like the whites had the white education, the blacks had the Bantu education. That's not, we're going to have the sovereign states of Good Hope education platform, end of discussion. And that is also merit-based. If you come from a disadvantaged neighborhood or whatever, you will be able to study. You will be able to study what you want to. If you're good enough at it, you will get a bursary to be able to study further. If you're not, you go to a vocational school, you learn a trade. A lot of people I know are not academically inclined. I was one of them. I did an apprenticeship. I did technical studies and everything else, got into business development and everything because it was something I enjoyed doing. So it's got to be catered around what the child's abilities are. This whole thing of saying we're having a blanket education system, you fit in or you're a retard and there's no space for you, doesn't work. Kids need to realize that just because they can't do one thing doesn't mean they can't do something else. It boils down to what I said as well about the whole thing with the university degree. You've got these kids, like I said before, I've got nothing against the arts. I love museums. I love a good painting. Some of them I don't understand and probably never will, but they look nice. I love the arts. I've been, believe it or not, to one or two live ballet things. I don't know what you call them. I love classical music. I listen to everything from Handel's Messiah to Metallica Black and everything in between. So I love the arts. I love that sort of thing. But to me, if a child is going to go to university and spend 4 years studying a fine arts degree, what is he going to do when he finishes university? Live in his parents' basement and live off welfare. Because with a fine arts degree, if you take 100 kids, maybe 1 or 2 out of 100 kids will get a job with a fine arts degree. Studying graphic art is a different concept because you can go into advertising, you can be productive. But these retarded, and when I say retarded, they are totally retarded courses that some of these universities are offering our children as a scapegoat to get a degree just for the sake of having a degree behind your name are a complete waste of time. They're a waste of money and they're a waste of effort. I mean, a case in point, if you take a kid, goes and does a 4-year fine arts degree, he comes out of college or varsity or whatever, and he's got $350,000 worth of debt. He can't find a job, firstly. How's he going to pay that money back? You take the same kid, you put him in a 3-year apprenticeship, qualify him as a welder. He qualifies not owing any money because he's been working while he was doing his apprenticeship. So his studies paid for themselves. He comes out after 3 years, walks into a job where he earns $75,000 a year. How's he not going to have a good life? How's he not going to be able to prosper? How's he not going to be able to provide for his kids? Get married, raise a family, live in a nice house, drive a nice car. Those are the objectives we want to reach with our education system and with the people in the sovereign states of Good Hope, that everybody can achieve what they want to achieve, that they will only be limited by their own imagination. On the proviso, it is good for the nation and it's good for the people. I mean, if you've got this weird, wacky dream of building a nuclear silo and blowing shit up, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's got to
yes.
But anything that you want to do, your limits are literally going to be your imagination. We're going to be having a major look on the energy side of things at solar farms because we've got the Karoo. It rains there maybe 4 days a year, if you're lucky. We were there a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think I've ever seen a more dry, desolate place. I did when we flew over the Sahara. In the Karoo, you at least get a couple of bushes every now and again.
Oh, but it's so hot. It's so hot, Gordon. When I drove through the Karoo from Cape Town up to Zanin, it's like driving into an oven. It is breathless heat.
Spoon.
Yeah.
It's like soup. You can't, look, but there's so much potential, with our with the expansion on energy, looking at biomass, we've got, methane plants that we can set up all over the place. So there's a lot of diversified engineering possibilities that are going to be out there. So you're going to need tradesmen. We're going to need qualified guys. And I'm not talking about a guy that's gone and learns how to put in a plug so he gets a certificate. Then he learns how to put in a light bulb and he gets a certificate. And he goes and he puts in a light switch and he gets a certificate. Then he takes those 3 certificates and then he gets told he's an electrician. And then when a house burns down that he's rewired, everybody asks, but why? He's a certified electrician. The guys are going to do proper apprenticeship training programs where they are going to be, part of the thing will be they will do a lot of theoretical work, but more hands-on practical work because that is the best experience to get. And we're going to need them. With the expansion projects and things like that we're going to be implementing, we are going to need qualified people. We're going to need qualified people to teach and mentor apprentices and people that are willing to learn. Because once we've got the bulk of the people working, South Africa is sitting at the moment at a 27% unemployment rate, if not higher. Those are the official statistics, so it's probably a hell of a lot higher.
Yeah.
Than 27% unemployment. How on God's green earth does a country survive with a 27% unemployment rate?
And all those people are living on social grants. So, it's unsustainable, totally.
No, it is, absolutely. Look, for me, if a person is infirm and, whether they are a paraplegic, an epileptic, or whatever, and there is no feasible way for them to work, then I say government needs to support them 110% of the way. You need to look after that person. There's nothing worse, and I've seen it in so many instances in South Africa where these guys have got serious medical issues. There was a thing, you can Google it as well, they closed one of the mental hospitals in Gauteng area, and 144 mental patients died because the person in their brightfulness decided to subcontract the care of mental health patients to people who had a tin shack, literally, and had a room made out of 6 pieces of shanty tin with a roof on it, with a bed in it, that was their medical care facility. 144 people died because of this beautiful government's brain fart on how do you reorganize mental health care in South Africa. There were incidents of kids that were left in a mental institution in Krugersdorp that were literally locked in dog cages. Now, you can imagine what must go through a child's mind being sane, being locked in a dog cage. Now, imagine what goes through a mentally ill child's mind being locked in a dog cage because they couldn't be bothered looking after you. They couldn't be bothered changing your clothes or making sure you don't soil yourself. They couldn't be bothered. When the South African populace carries on about poverty and all the rest of it, I want to take them, put them on an airplane and fly them to Conakry in Guinea and say to them, now live here for 6 months and then complain again about poverty. Or take them to India and let them walk around in those cities where those slums and everything are and say to them, now live here for 6 months and then tell me. We have, and I'm no skinny fellow myself, we must be the biggest importers of oversized clothing, I think, in the world next to the United States. I've had clients request me for an 8XL pair of pants for a woman.
No.
And that's a whole lot of ass. There's, and and then when they put it in, it looks like what my gran used to say. It looks like polony dressed as ham. It's like squeezed in. You can't understand how some of these people get into clothes.
But Gordon, how do they work then? How do they possibly work? Because they can't run, they can't walk. How do those people then expect to work?
KwaZulu-Natal's Road Traffic Department has a thing every year when they get new candidates in for their cadet training program. And the first thing, before you go for an interview, before you do the psychological evaluation or anything else like that, you've got to run, I don't know how many kilometers it is. Okay? And it's not like a marathon, it's a couple of Ks.
Yeah.
Now, you get given 6 hours to finish this. And it's, I stand corrected, but I think it's about 5 or 6 kilometers they've got to run. They get 6 hours to complete it. People die trying to run that distance in 6 hours. People have literally died trying to run 3 kilometers in 6 hours.
Oh, my Lord.
But anyway, let's get back on topic.
My Lord. Wow.
With the education, the healthcare system, everything else like that, there is going to be a radical change. With education, kids are going to be, by the time they leave school, they will be able to walk into a job as a bank clerk, as a whatever, without having to go to university to get a degree to become a bank clerk, because their level of education will be that much higher. There's a chap in the Eastern Cape that has actually got a phenomenal system that he's started at his school, and he's been running it for about the last 2 years, I think it is, where he calls it a 646 program, and I think it is phenomenal. These kids are at school at 6 o'clock in the morning. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they get a 2-hour break where they can either partake in sports or go home or do whatever. But at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're back at school. And then from 4 to 6, they are in class. And then at 6 o'clock, they go home. And this guy has got 100% pass rate on all standards for the last 2 years. Because these kids, and the other thing that it boils down to is his dedicated staff, that his staff are willing to sacrifice the time to be able to educate these kids, because they know, even the teachers that are worth their salt, and believe me, there are a lot of teachers that are the most useless creations on God's green earth, educating students at the moment in South Africa. Because some of them, if you're lucky, pitch up for school at 10 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, they don't even pitch up for school. And school in South Africa generally starts at 8 o'clock. And these kids, the teachers that are teaching them all have to be properly educated in the first place. Because now to become a teacher in South Africa, you need a diploma. Before, you needed a degree. Now you need a diploma. And the difference is a couple of years in training, but also your practicals. I mean, they no longer, we used to have school inspectors that used to come around and grade the teachers. That every single teacher was appraised and assessed by an inspector. And if you didn't, measure up, you were either retrained or you were told, listen, you need to find another occupation. That doesn't happen in South Africa anymore. There's nobody checking up on the teachers to make sure that they're actually teaching properly. So what hope can your child possibly have with an education system like that?
But then, Gordon, if you have a president who has absolutely bugger all education, and one in waiting, Malema, who failed woodwork, and now suddenly has this degree that he got in a year, what chance is there that country is going to be run correctly? What chance is there?
None whatsoever. There is no chance whatsoever. The only, in my personal opinion, if there had to be another president in South Africa that could possibly make South Africa work again to a degree, is somebody like Cyril Ramaphosa, who's got a university degree, that has the education, that has the common sense, has the brain capacity to run an exceptionally successful business. He will be able to do well. Dr. Matthews Poza, who I've met a couple of times years ago, is honestly one of the most amazing Afrikaans literature poets I think I've ever read in my life. Believe it or not. He writes the most amazing poetry in Afrikaans. Matthews Poza, or Dr. Matthews Poza. You know, guys like that are the ones that need to be put in power. The guys with the education that can see that the country needs the direction. But it's not going to happen because it's a bully mentality. And they're going to carry on bullying, and they're going to carry on bullying. And eventually, you know what, every bully meets his match. Eventually. And, you know, like Kuba always says, we don't want war. We don't want to sit with strife.
No.
A peaceful secession. We want our land back that was rightfully ours before the Dutch arrived, and we want to be able to rule and govern ourselves. I mean, if the United Nations recognizes the Khoisan as the first Aboriginal nation of South Africa, what right does any government have to turn around and refuse or repudiate that recognition?
They have none, but they are not going to let this go peacefully. I really don't believe that they are going to say, oh, well, okay, you're gone today. Look at what has happened to the Catalonian leaders. They were arrested in the last 48 hours and put in jail for wanting to secede.
Yeah.
So,
okay, but Catalonia is a different, it's a different sort of situation. You know, I can understand the Catalonia situation, what I've read about it and all the rest of it. By no means I'm claiming to be an expert on Spanish or Catalonian heritage or whatever. But the thing is, the mistake the Catalonians made was the referendum. You know, if they were, where the difference comes in as well, is that Catalonia or Catalonians or whatever they're called haven't been recognized by the United Nations as a nation. You know, the same problem happened with the Boer Afrikaner. When the Boer Afrikaner went to the United Nations to be recognized as a nation, they turned around and said to them, but who are you? You know, your language was written by Kratoa, who was a Khoisan interpreter that worked for Jan van Riebeeck, invented Afrikaans. And you can check the history facts. That's where their language comes from. They say to them, what is your bloodline heritage? What is your ethnicity? And it's, okay, I'm part German, I'm part Dutch, I'm part French, I'm part Italian, I'm part this part, that part, that part, the next thing. You can't make a cocktail and come up with a new nation. You know, that's like Frankenstein things. And believe me, I've got no problem with the Afrikaners. My wife's Afrikaans. And I love them. They're incredible people. But the thing is, the facts of the matter remain. This is why international law exists. And this is why the Aboriginal councils and all the rest of it, what they do is they look at who were the first people there. Okay? So whoever the first person was that's there, it's his land. You know, whether you came along and developed it and built big buildings and put up highways, it doesn't matter. It wasn't yours to start off with. You know, and we had this mass migration down from the north to the blacks with the Khoisan and the Boers meeting up with the Xhosa at the Fish River and all the rest of it, and the Anglo-Boer Wars and all that sort of stuff. There weren't any black people in the Western Cape. The whites were in the Western Cape for the first 178 years before the blacks arrived. That were the first to arrive in the Cape were Mozambican and Angolan slaves because the Dutch were too lazy to catch their own slaves, so they used to hijack the Portuguese trade ship and steal the slaves off the ships, sink the ships, and then bring the slaves down to the Cape. And those were the first black people in the Cape. It's history, and people need to learn history. They need to read up on things. They need to broaden their horizons because, history, whoever wins the war writes the history.
Yep.
And that's the unfortunate thing in society. I mean, I did a little experiment myself. I went to the National Archives in Pretoria, and I said to them, okay, I want to see photographs from the Anglo-Boer War because I love old black and white photographs. I've just got this thing about historical photographs. So I thought one day I'll just do this to see what's there. You know how many photographs there are of groups of Boers with black soldiers with ammunition belts holding firearms, posing in photographs with white Boers. But the National Party government in their intelligence thought, well, no, they don't need to see that we got along at one stage and we actually fought the British together. So those photographs would leave in the archives and we'll only make available the pictures of the all-white people staying in groups.
Yes, because when you talk about the concentration camps, people never mention how many blacks died in those camps. There's just no mention of it anywhere.
Yeah, we weren't taught it. I mean, blacks and Khoi, coloured, were shot and murdered by the British for supporting the Boers during the Anglo-Boer Wars. During the Anglo-Zulu Wars, there were Khois that fought and colours that fought alongside the Boers against the Xhosa and all the rest of it. It's all in history. But like I said, whoever wins the war writes the history.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the key things that we're going to be doing and are adamant about it is that the history you learn about the sovereign state of Good Hope is going to be the complete history of the sovereign state of Good Hope. What everybody did to everybody, why everything has been forgiven, that we realize that if we keeping grudges, we're never going to be able to develop a country. We're never going to be able to stand together against whatever threats might come our way. We're never going to be able to make this place a worthwhile place to live in if we keep living in the past. That was one of Mandela's expressions. A very good friend of mine from years ago worked in the presidential guest house in Pretoria. Through, I think it was the Klerk and Mandela, and then partly while Mbeki was president. And he was always in very close contact with all of them all the time because of his catering needs that had to be done and everything else. And Mandela actually turned around and said to him the one day, that if South Africa keeps living in the past, we're never going to have a future. And those words, to me, carry a lot of weight. Because, yes, we've done things in the past, things have happened in the past. But how long do you have to be responsible for the sins of your father?
But, Gordon, you also have to put all of these things in historical context because you cannot judge 100 years ago by the standards of today. The world had different standards then, and things that were acceptable then are not acceptable now. So you cannot look back to Jan van Riebeeck and say, yes, he should have, because these things didn't exist then.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot that's changed in the world, but I think, on the level of everything, people need to realize that we don't own this earth. We don't own anything in it. It all belongs to our children. And if we're going to be selfish enough to stuff it up for them, then we don't deserve to be here in the first place.
I agree.
Because our children and our children's children are going to turn around and say, you know what, they made a concerted effort to make this work. They made it work, and because they made it work, we have the responsibility to make it work as well.
That is one of the key things that King Kubaha says, is that we don't own the land. We are custodians of the land, and we need to pass it on better then we got it. And that statement of his really hit home to me because, as you so politely said, we are stuffing it up. And we have been doing that for a very, very long time. And we need to change our ways. And so for me, Good Hope, again, is a beacon of light because if we do this correctly, it will be an example to the rest of the world of how things work when they are done with love and with humility and with decency rather than with a rapacious will for more for me.
Absolutely. You know, the biggest problem that happened in South Africa is that with the change of governments, I mean, I never agreed with the system of apartheid or the Group Areas Act or anything else like that. I've always firmly believed that people need to live where they want to live, not live in an area out of spite, but living in an area where they're comfortable in living in. They, you know, do what they want to do, marry who they want to do, and all the rest of it. But when you look at the way things were just handed over, I mean, you took a bunch of gentlemen that were in prison for a very, very long time, that had no idea how to run a country, that had no idea of access to wealth that they would have, and give them a country to run. Because that automatic thing of, I can get a brand new Merc every 6 months, I can live in an absolute mansion, I can do this. And once they've tasted that lifestyle, and it's not a black thing, it's not a white thing, it's not an Indian thing, it's not a colored thing, it's a human nature thing. If you've grown up with absolutely nothing, and all of a sudden you have a windfall, okay, you are going to exploit it to the maximum. And that's unfortunately what happened. I mean, if you look at the things that happen with people that win the lottery, that have got nothing, that win the lottery, and they win 20, 30, 40 million US dollars, how dramatically it changes their life. Go and look at those people 5 years down the line and see where they are. And I can promise you 99% of them are the most miserable people you have ever met in your life. And most of them will agree that they regret winning that money because they've got no idea how to manage it. They've got no idea how to protect it. They get ripped off by con artists like you can't believe. And when it comes to government, when these people are all of a sudden in this position of power, they realize that their little pen on a piece of paper can bring them X amount of money in the bank account, so they're going to do it. They don't care if they get caught. What's going to happen? They're going to get fired. They're not going to go to jail. They're going to get fired or they're going to be put into another department.
But they've still got the money anyway. We're coming... Gordon, we're coming up to the last station break. We will be back in a few minutes.
You're listening to Radio Free South Africa with Karin Smith on ResolutionRDO.com. Call in to listen now at 607-203-5423. That's 607-203-5423.
Welcome back to Radio Free South Africa. This is your host, Karin Smith, and our guest tonight, Gordon Holder from South Africa, talking about the secession of the sovereign nation of Good Hope. In this last portion of the show, I would like Gordon to tell us where do we go to from here, because people have their doubts about the secession because it appears to the public that nothing is happening. However, nothing could be further from the truth. There is so much going on behind the scenes, and I'd like Gordon to tell us a little bit about that. So welcome back, Gordon.
Thanks, Karin. Just touching on where we go to from here, what basically happened is we've met up with all of the criteria necessary to be acknowledged by the United Nations, save for one. And the one little devil in the details is that we need a foreign country or foreign king or foreign president or whatever to recognize the sovereign states of Good Hope as an independent country. Once we've got that letter of resignation, we are then regarded as an independent country. Then we can go to the United Nations and say, hi, this is us, here's our documentation, signed in agreement by XYZ, and we would now like to join the United Nations, and that's it. That's basically where we are at this point. And the catch-22 situation, to coin a phrase, is that we need to be able to travel to these respective countries to go and see their heads of state, because their heads of state obviously won't come and do it in South Africa. So we need to go to them. And the biggest problem there is the financial side of things. And we don't need to raise masses of amounts of money, because we are keeping ourselves afloat with our jobs and everything else, and tapping into retirement funds and whatever we've had available to be able to use to do this, to get it to this point. But we at the crossroads now where we need to raise approximately $15,000 to $20,000 to be able to cover the travel expenses and that, because obviously the king needs to travel with 2 advisors and a small security contingent, because we don't know for a fact, but everybody can see the writing on the wall that certain people will do whatever they can do to make sure that this doesn't happen. So we need to be able to make sure that the king is protected, the queen is protected, and that they have the ways and means to be able to travel. And this is where we are hoping that the international community will be able to step up and say, well, okay, we believe in what you're doing, we want to assist. And like I said, there is a PayPal account that has been set up. Karin, you've got more details on that.
Yes, I will put the PayPal details in the comment section.
Okay. The guys will be able to, even if it's $2, $5, in South Africa we've got an expression that says "Biki Biki Mark Baya," and roughly translated it means every drop counts. Every drop will fill a bucket.
Yep.
So we need to get in whatever we can get in to reach that goal, and we want to try and do it as quickly as possible, because the longer we delay, the more it obviously looks like to everybody that we're doing nothing. But there is a hell of a lot of work going on in the background, from setting up the correct ministries, getting people involved on the ground, making, just getting the awareness out there, because obviously we've got a complete media blackout on everything to do with the secession, which would be a natural defense mechanism, I think, for any country. We can't get the attention of CNN and the BBC and the rest of them, because they just don't care about what happens in South Africa or Africa as a whole, unless it affects them. As like I said, they left out the rest of the world on the UN, but it should be, unless we benefit, we're not interested. And we can't. We got it to a point now on our own where we need people to step up and say, listen, we believe in what you're doing. Even if you potentially one day want to immigrate to the sovereign states of Good Hope, you're not going to buy your way in, but, if you believe in it strongly enough, now's the time to step up and say, listen, this is what I can do. Even if it's, moral support, just saying, dropping an email saying, hi, listen, I think what you're doing is great. Keep up the good fight and get it done. Everything, prayers help like you cannot believe at this point in time. We're obviously getting a lot of negative rhetoric from some people who have tried to get involved with this secession, that have got very dark ulterior motives. Luckily, we managed to pick it up before it was too late, and have managed to nip that in the butt, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like that with any situation. As soon as you try and do good, evil will try and find a way to prevail. And so far, fortunately, we've been able to keep the evil at bay, because we do have quite a couple of good men involved, from all four nations that are desperately want to have this done and make this succeed, because we know it can. We've just seen it amongst ourselves. You would never in your life 10 years ago have thought you would have a koi-colored, English-speaking white South African and a very conservative Afrikaans person sitting in the same room having a conversation on how to make the country better. And these are the things, the major milestones that we've been able to cover at the moment already. Now, imagine what we could do if we were actually in control of the governance of this country. It'll be phenomenal. That we've got people that are, that we've managed to get these four nations together to agree on the principles of everything we want to do. Imagine what we can do. And this is why the financial side of it, like I said, it doesn't sound like a hell of a lot of money, but if you don't have it, it might as well be $1 billion right now. Between ourselves, we've scraped together that we cover transport costs and, day-to-day living expenses, and going and meet with groups and meet with people and have question and answer sessions and all that sort of stuff. I mean, as you know, Karin, the cost of data in South Africa is ridiculous. Currently we're paying the equivalent of $11 for 1 gig of data. For 1 gig of data is costing us the equivalent of $11. So it is a major burden. And the fact that, you saw it happening on TV. I was eventually, when we were doing that interview, was operating on 3 different devices just to be able to get the interview done, because they, people were trying to stop the message from getting out.
Yeah, I'm stunned that every time we do a report on the secession, our servers come under severe attack. You saw yesterday that you couldn't even see Mel because why?
Yeah.
Who knows why, but you couldn't. And they took her offline, and they took me offline, and it's amazing how that happens. So yes, this thing is, they're desperately trying to not let it go public, and we have to make it our mission to ensure that it does. So there are 2 things that we need to stress. Firstly, Gordon, we do have another country willing to acknowledge, waiting to acknowledge the sovereign state of Good Hope.
We have 2 at the moment, and we have 3 that are willing to ratify once one of those 2 have signed. So we've actually got 5 countries that are willing to recognize it. We just need to get there.
And from my point of view,
that's basically what the ball.
From my point of view, $5,000 or so is really not a lot of money to form a new country. Think of the pride you'll feel in yourself that you had a small part in making this happen. I appeal to you, and I can't make it stronger than that. I absolutely appeal to you. Give up your coffee or your McDonald's for today and give that $5 or $10 to this cause, and have the pride of knowing that you saved 4 nations from annihilation, because that is the end of them, literally, in South Africa, if we do not make this work. And the other thing I want to stress is that the PayPal account that I'm going to put in the comment section of this show is the only legitimate Good Hope PayPal account. There are many out there trying to make a buck off of the secession, and any other account is false. So please do not donate to them. We are this weekend working desperately on a website which will have a donate button where you will probably feel more secure in donating funds, and I will distribute the link to that website as soon as we have it up. But for now, this is the only legitimate donation site for the Cape of Good Hope. Go ahead, Gordon.
Okay, thanks for that, Karin. Yes, there are, unfortunately, like I said, where good prices succeed, evil will try and triumph. And with that PayPal account thing, the only one at any point will be the one that is on your site. We are aware of 4 other ones that are out there, and unless you link to it from Karin's website, don't donate any money to it. Because it's either going to probably go, I honestly don't even know where it's going to go, but it's not going to end up with the king and with the council to be able to get this situation sorted out. So just an appeal from me. I don't want to play the guilt card, but if it's the only one left, then I'll do it. 380,000 plus people have been murdered in South Africa since 1994 until today. You can make a difference. You can help create the sovereign state of Good Hope. And I hope you do.
Godspeed. My prayers and my wishes are with you. And as you know, this station and Conscious Consumer Network TV are fully behind you. And I wish you well. I wish you only the best. And everything in our power to make this work, we will do for you. So, Gordon, thank you very, very much for your time this evening. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm hoping that the next time we have you on, you will be a citizen of the sovereign nation of Good Hope.
Thank you very much, Karin. And yeah, to all your listeners, God bless you guys. God bless America. And let's hope we can get this done. Thanks a lot for your time.
God bless the sovereign nation of Good Hope. God bless the USA. And God help the world that we live in today.
Once I was a blind man, wandering to and fro. Once I was in sin, out of control. But he reached down and picked me up, poured his spirit over me, and knocked the scales from my eyes, and now I see. Praise Him, praise Him, praise Him, praise His holy name. I was in sin, but He loved me just the same. Praise Him, praise Him. Won't you be praising His name?